But that's one of my stories. I want Pastor Casper to talk about his information on this.
Well, I recall that I had a friend from Harvard Medical School, and she brought a physician. They stayed with us one weekend, and she was in Iraq at the time. She was Iraqi and pathologist, and she said something very strange. She said she was there when America invaded. The first thing they did was go into the museum. That's where you would go on an invasion, the museum. This was after the announcement, is what you just explained, that they discovered the tomb of Gilgamesh, Osiris, Nimrod, whatever you want to call them, a Nephilim. And it kind of makes you wonder too, like, why were the pharaohs mummified? Were they expecting to return at some point? So the more I researched it, I found that in 2015, researchers discovered that the remnants of red blood cells and connective tissues and what they claim to be a 75 million year old dinosaur fossil. How does that happen, right? 75 million years later, we got some pathologist, palynologist rather, that was able to extract blood from an old dinosaur bone. I'm kind of thinking Jurassic Park going on here, right?
Yeah.
So from what I understand, the Iraqi war was actually launched, again, as a cover story, just kind of like maybe the towers came down to hide the fact and distract everybody that trillions of dollars have been stolen, and the buildings that came down were the ones that had all the record keeping of the trillions of dollars that were disappearing. So it wasn't bankers. I think it's where we get the term banksters. And when you look at the accounts of Nimrod, apparently it was cut into 14 sections at the time of his death. Yeah, you're right. The same Nimrod, related to Noah, grandson. So the Towers of Babel were built. So he was basically the first world dictator, the first totalitarian antichrist figure that came along. I think the internet's kind of like a reconstruction in the sense of the Tower of Babel, who's obviously not just some kind of tower for height, because they built it on the plain of Shinar. So if you're going to build a tower trying to reach an heaven, you at least start on a mountaintop. So it had nothing to do with that, the height of it, really. And I think the elites have been, trying to reconstruct Nimrod from his DNA. We know that kind of technology is available now. And I think the reports that I've gotten, which is really strange, and I did write a song about it, Nimrod's Head, because I had some people that were close to the researchers involved and told me that his head remains in the Vatican at the moment, surrounded by strange fire, which is monatomic gold. Archaeologists and scientists, monatomic gold is a very, kind of where we have colloidal silver, right? So they had monatomic gold, and there's a whole lot to that story. We could probably talk about it for days, but it was an exotic white powder gold that was used by the ruling classes, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, all those secret societies with their esoteric rituals. They probably learned from the fallen angels that came to take women as slaves and impregnate them with whatever technology they were using, probably something like CRISPR technology. But numerous researchers have looking into the cultism of monatomic gold. It's still being used in esoteric rituals by secret societies today. So that's not really that surprising. Apparently, it had some kind of exotic healing powers on the body, brain, and pineal glands. And again, it's just a bunch of devil worshiping going on. I think that the monatomic elements, monatomic gold, are made from single atoms, not bound to one another. How they do that? One strange exotic property is when you heat up to certain temperatures, it becomes very light and possibly produces anti-gravity. I had my friend Stan Deo was involved in research for, and ended up with above top secret clearance with the U.S. government. working on anti-gravity, and that was like, I'm guessing 20 years ago or more. A lot of real strange stories with that one.
Yeah.
So I remember talking with another guy I lectured with, Anthony Patch, years ago at some prophecy conferences, and he had talked about it a lot. He'd been really tracking things at CERN, which is really kind of like I think they're a weapons, advanced weapon development facility. They think they're going to take the Lord out at Armageddon. They're so delusional. So
yeah, I think they're delusional as well.
So
But,
yeah, I think that's what's going on with it. Yeah.
So in one of my conferences with Craig Venter, the guy that has been to the transhumanism, he mentioned that what if we found the remains of a superhuman? So, and as soon as he said superhuman, I'm like, what? And then I remembered about Nimrod, Gilgamesh's body. And I'm like, oh, please, I pray that they don't mean that. He says, what if we could find the remains of a superhuman and bring that back, bring the superhuman race back, or integrate it within and fix our genome with that? And I'm like, he can't. I pray he's not talking about Nimrod and Gilgamesh's, which is Nephilim genetics, right?
That's in the days of Noah.
Very good. And as far as Pastor CASPAR was talking about the, what do you call it, metagenic gold? Is that what you called it?
Monatomic gold.
Monatomic gold. Believe it or not, I used to be in the jewelry business and the refining business, and I actually made that stuff one time by accident. It's literally a powder. It doesn't register. It has no weight. I took it to the refinery. They said, this is not gold. I was actually able to recombine it back with lead and turn it back into gold. Crazy enough. And that's one of the reasons God testified to me that I was able to make the oil that I made. I was like, wow, this is just amazing. I can actually do this. And I had no idea about this. And then like 5 years later, it freaked me out so much I just stopped doing the refining process completely, actually. Sorry about the background noise. Anyways, just an amazing supernatural experience of my own. When I actually did this, I was like just blown away. I thought, well, I can't mess around with this stuff. This is dangerous. Be able to make gold or turn it into nothing and then turn it back into gold again. You know? I was like, I felt pretty weird. That was way before I made the oil, like 10 years ago.
I think one of the reasons the Crown outlawed alchemy was because it worked. And there's somebody recently that was doing minerals and stones and turning them into gold, changing the properties. So apparently that is a reality.
Mm-hmm.